Hi, I'm Sam Hamner, a PhD student at Stanford and a member of the OpenSim project. Today I'm going to show you how to visualize and evaluate results with the Scale tool in OpenSim. Last time I showed you how to set up the Scale tool. So now that we've entered in all of the information into the tool dialog and we've selected the ever-important Preview Static Pose checkbox, we're going to hit Run. I'm going to close the tool dialog. As the tool runs, I'm going to open up the Messages window by clicking here on Window and selecting Messages. And this will give us some more detailed information once the analysis is finished running. Okay, now we have a scaled model. So I'm going to look at the find the model by zooming out a little bit. I'm going to actually zoom in on the result. But now we need to check some things to make sure that we've actually accurately scaled this model. So if you look in the Messages window, the first thing you might notice is that we have a message here that the optimizer actually failed. So that's our first sign that we probably don't have a great solution. The next thing I like to check, which is on the next line, is the marker error from the scaled model. And it actually tells us the RMS error of all the markers in the static pose, and then also gives us the maximum marker error for the one marker that has the most error. And here we see that the marker labeled LCal, or the marker on the left calcaneus, has about 6 centimeters of error. That's a good amount. So what does that look like? So I'm going to zoom in on the foot. We can see on the calcaneus, or the heel, left heel, we have a very large distance between the experimental marker in blue and the virtual marker in pink. So the next thing I like to check also are the joint angles of the static pose. So we can check the joint angles by going over to the coordinates window by clicking on the coordinates tab. And if we look down on at the ankle angle, we see that we got a solution of negative 10 degrees, or about 10 degrees of planar flexion. So how do we know if this is right? Well, one thing I like to recommend is taking lots of photos of your subject during the static trial. And I just happen to have a photo of our subject from that trial. And if we look at his foot, we can be pretty sure that he didn't have 10 degrees of ankle planar flexion. So this probably means that I didn't do a great job of placing the virtual markers on the model around the foot. We can actually zoom in on the original model and see that, and look at the virtual markers placed around the foot. And we can see that the marker on the toe and the calcaneus are actually pretty far off from where the markers were placed on our subject in the photo. So we can actually fix this pretty easily in the GUI by holding down Control and clicking on a marker, and then we can just drag it to a more appropriate location. So now I'm actually going to close these models and open a model that I've already corrected the markers around the foot, and open that up. And I'm going to run the Scale tool again. So I'm going to open the Scale tool dialog and load that same settings file. Select Preview Static Pose and hit Run. Okay, and so now we have our newly scaled model. So I'm going to zoom in on that result. And right away, if we look at the markers around the foot, we can see that the virtual markers and the experimental markers are much closer together. To see what that value actually is, we can go back to the Messages window and see that the maximum marker error is now the left toe, and it's only 2.8 centimeters, which is much better than before. The last thing we can check is we can go back to our coordinates window and look at the ankle angle, and we see now we have a value of 1 degree, or positive 1 degree, or about 1 degree of ankle dorsiflexion. So the last thing we want to do now is we want to go back to our Scale tool dialog and uncheck Preview Static Pose and hit Run. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to run the Scale tool again, but this time adjust the virtual markers so that they're in the same location as the experimental markers from our trial. And now once this is done, now we have an accurately scaled model with a marker set that represents exactly the marker set we placed on our subject during the static trial. So the last thing we're going to do is save this model by going to File, Save Model As. Now type in Scaled Model and hit Save. And now that completes our crash course on how to visualize and evaluate a scaled model in the Scale tool using OpenSim.